Rolling.
Welcome to Mavericks of Senior Living, everybody. Happy Friday. This is Catherine Wells, Chief Inspiration Maverick. And
I'm here, Francis, your Chief Curiosity Maverick. And today, is given the weather here in Colorado, we're going to talk a little bit about driving.
Driving at an older age. Have you ever been in that position where you're driving with mom or dad and you're questioning their ability to drive, and what do you do about it? So
I wonder how many people that impacts. It's going to be a question we ask our guest is how many people get kind of in this on a yearly basis of the keys talk.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it's a tough conversation. So we're going to dive right in. Stick with us. We are going to play a quick video thanking our sponsors.
This incredible show made possible by our wonderful sponsors. Assured Senior Living, love, it's what we do. And Serenity Engage, where care connects. Now, a brief message from Serenity Engage. Serenity connects aging service providers, older adults, and their loved ones in a single network. Our web, mobile, and smart assistance products power the network that enables real-time, HIPAA-compliant communication, collaboration, and education. When we care together, providers increase revenue and lower expenses, older adults receive better care, and family has greater peace of mind.
All right. Welcome back. Thanks for sticking with us. We are super excited to have Ms. Teri Cassidy with Fitness to Drive with us today. Thank you for joining us, Teri.
Hi, thank you.
So excited to talk to you again. So we talked to Teri. We've been doing
pre-COVID.
Almost 4 years we've been doing this, Francis. And
pre-COVID.
Was maybe our second or third guest. Yeah.
I'd say it's
so
2019, right?
An inaugural Maverick. Aren't you excited?
That is very exciting, yes.
It is. So Teri, tell our audience what you do.
Sure. I am an occupational therapist and the owner of Fitness to Drive, and we focus on driver safety. So driving evaluations, training, adaptive equipment for all ages, really. But here talking about older drivers, which is a really wide range, that term. But anybody who maybe medically there's some concern about driving, or they have a diagnosis, or there's just behaviors that the family's noticing and they want to make sure that their loved one is safe.
Yeah, it's really, really fascinating. So I met Teri and I didn't even know it, but I met her it was probably 2010, 2009, something like that. My dad had noticed that my mom was really struggling with remembering paths that she'd driven forever, and he was noticing a lot of memory problems, and we got connected through the hospital that she worked at, which was Penrose Hospital. My mom worked there, and Teri, I don't know if you worked there or if you were just referred through there. Yeah. So Teri actually did a fitness driving test on my mom. And then we met again in 2019 and started talking about the aging population. It's a challenge for the family when you bring in someone that you're concerned about their driving. Tell us what you've learned through the years doing this.
Well, one thing I'll say is that the family is so important. And so I really love the involvement of family, and there's a lot of different things. So a lot of times we are seeing this person one time, it's a 3-hour session. We're really getting a lot of information, a lot of data during that, but it's just one moment in time. So input from the family is super helpful about patterns or things that they've seen over time, or complaints of friends and neighbors, different things really help for us to know that as well. But what I think is that a lot of times family has an idea of, there's usually some good basis there in terms of how the driving eval is going to go. What I feel like we can offer is that objectivity, which can really.
Oh, shoot. No. The objectivity, Matt, was my fault. I don't know what I did, but I did something. I apologize.
We're all improv here. Go with the flow.
So objectivity.
Just having that outside voice, but then at the end of our session, we leave time for the family and the person being evaluated and the therapist to all talk together. And I'm always blown away by what family members bring to that conversation. Because oftentimes there's a lot of things they've been wanting to say, but they don't want to say the wrong thing. And so in our office is kind of a nice environment to give support and show love, and also kind of have some of those harder conversations that can be done sometimes in a different environment than the kitchen table. So that's been amazing to me.
It's a little like having a mediator, I think, for families, because it's so difficult to take the keys away from mom or dad. And you don't always know, am I doing the right thing? Is this the right time to take their keys away? Because you know what it means. It means they're losing some freedom. And that's really hard because somebody has to then take them to doctor's appointments, to the grocery store. So it has to be a kind of a group support, group decision, group, I don't know, support is the best thing I can think of. So given that those are the things that those are a couple of things that you've learned, what are the things that you would advise families to look for before they would ever bring mom or dad in?
Yeah, so along those lines, I feel like more and more I recommend people start this process of looking at driving specifically earlier. So I say, like, a lot of times families know what the outcome should be, and sometimes that's when, if it's a dementia diagnosis, for example, someone's pretty far along and maybe have been unsafe for a while. But even from the emotional standpoint, for us, if we can see somebody maybe when they have a mild cognitive impairment diagnosis, and we can start that discussion and make it just something we're going to talk about on a regular basis, like not necessarily with us, but with the family. If we can see somebody and see, like, from our in-clinic testing, usually supporting diagnosis that they already have, but not everybody has a diagnosis when they come to us. But that they're still driving pretty well in a limited environment, so that we can slowly make changes over time. And then they come back in here for reevaluation. And it allows kind of everybody in that whole circle to adjust to, how is this person going to get around? What are the most important routes for them? Can they start learning some other methods of getting to doctor's appointments? So I think if it can be a slower process, as opposed to just one day, at least this person feels like they're independent driving everywhere, and the next day they're not.
Do you think, though, it's almost an education along with their primary care and other physicians and other medical practice? Like, I kind of feel we put a lot of the burden on the family to be like, oh, it's your problem. Good luck. Solve it. Here's mom. It's got a dementia diagnosis. And it's like, wait, what? Well, what did you, like, I kind of feel like we are, like, our primary carers or even neurologists, we need to, I don't know. I respect what they do. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like there's just this assumption that, we can't medically fix you if you have dementia. So
here you go.
Yeah, like,
without a
there's no
booklet.
roadmap. And
Yeah.
like, I'm thinking about my grandmother. My grandmother's 96, but honestly, she didn't really, it was like, for her, not driving she didn't like driving. So, like,
So she was happy about it.
She didn't even.
That's how I'll be. I can't wait for flying cars. I'm not kidding.
But I'm just trying to think of like my parents, right? I mean, my dad he loves to go to the grocery store. Like, that's one of the things he does. But that's where it's going to be the harder conversation, is someone that has that freedom of movement, right?
Yeah.
But if we don't,
their way of socializing, getting out of the house.
Right. But I'm just trying to think, if we don't get some of the primary cares to talk about this earlier, like when there's that mild cognitive impairment or early stage dementia diagnoses, like, let's tackle it as a community, right? Not just be like, driving today, not tomorrow. Like, I could see people get angry. Like, I've had families come talk to. I mean, I'm sure you see it firsthand,
right? Yeah. I don't blame them.
Right.
I do totally agree.
Bubble around, like, what can we do to get that information in the hands of physicians or, primary cares?
So we do have grant funding through Colorado Department of Transportation, really with the focus. I mean, things like this, like educating the public, but also really educating physicians. So we go into physician offices. I had the opportunity this year to talk to medical residence at CU Boulder, which is ideal. I feel like that's the way to go.
That's
awesome. Yeah.
That's
To
right.
just
Get
bring
there.
that up earlier, I totally agree, Frances, that the medical team, but I think the community, like as people are living longer, like the statistics show, we will all outlive our ability to drive. Women by 10 years, men by 7 years. And so if we can start to think in that way, like stopping driving isn't the end of life, this idea of like, how can we just support that? Okay, it's not a matter of if or when for all of us, regardless of medical issues, as long as we're living long. And how can we as a community kind of embrace that and be like, all right, yeah, I think I got 2 more years and then it's my time to be chauffeured. Like, I would love the idea of a shift that we're working toward that all together as a community.
That is fascinating. So let's repeat those statistics again for our audience. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when we will outlive our ability to drive. Women by 10 years, men by 7 on averages, right? So
let's just put that in the real world.
Able to talk about that and have that be a conversation among families, even having the adult children be talking earlier about, man, I can't wait to not drive. I'm so excited about, being able to have self-driving cars or be chauffeured around by an Uber or Lyft or whatever, or a caregiver. And really make it the normal rather than this is taking something away. It's actually can add value to your life.
Can I ask too, Terry, is this as big of an issue in, let's say European countries where cars are not as, as important
or urban? Yeah.
I'm sure not. I mean, I don't have statistics on that, but I think that's a really good point because, right, like even within this country, it's a much bigger issue in rural areas.
Right.
And there's a lot of rural areas. So in the United States, it is a big deal all around. But I definitely think so in European countries or other countries where walking is also just more of a way of life.
True.
Not as much suburbia.
Yeah. No, that's a great point because growing up in Michigan, it was like the automotive capital of basically the world back in the 80s and 90s, right? And so if I recall, there was an option to either do a subway system or further enhance the highway system. Of course, Michigan chose the highway system because it helps them sell more cars.
Yep.
Which makes sense, right? You have the big three at GM, Chrysler, and Ford, right? Yep. But I also think too, that's the same concept we run into in senior living, right? This idea of communal living, right? We want this privacy, this innate desire for this alone, which at the end of the day, it's further creating isolation and loneliness, right? Which we know has a rampant impact on overall health for all of us, regardless of young, old, or anything in between. And I think the same concept can apply here. Like there are some communal groups that all of a sudden you get maybe in support groups that they can come pick you up or take you to church, right? You build relationships in the community, which could now be your new form of transportation. So not only do you get driven somewhere, you have new friends,
right?
A new support system as well too for maybe that eldest daughter who's exhausted of driving mom to every stinking appointment.
Yes,
I think there's a lot to that, and I think housing and transportation are tied. But I think as people are planning for their own aging, it needs to be more of a decision of like, because so many people are like, oh, I'll move to the mountains when I retire. But then that's all further isolating. And so if we can be planning for moving in retirement to places that have transportation options, it will just help that whole process. And the isolation is huge. And for a lot of people, it's why they drive. So they can get to these community events.
Yeah. Just your dad driving to the grocery store. That's a social thing. So he gets the benefit of being around.
And then he walks to the grocery store.
I love that. That's great. Yeah. So walking to the grocery store helps with lifespan and health span.
Right.
Fantastic. Well, so we've heard some statistics, and what I think the bottom line here for our audience is let's work towards reframing the way we talk about driving as we age, rather than taking the keys away. It's taking something else away from this individual who feels like so many things are already being taken away. We're actually reframing it to, what do you say? It's not it's not the end. It's a different
change in the
change
ending.
in the ending.
Change in the ending.
Change in the story. I really love that. Before we start to wrap up here, Terri, are there any other pointers that you would give specifically to the adult children who are looking, or a spouse or a loved one watching somebody not drive very well and doesn't know what to do about it?
I mean, my biggest thing would be to reach out. So things to be watching for, and a lot of people are aware, but certainly unexplained dents or scrapes on the car is always kind of a red flag. Getting lost in a familiar environment. And I would say, especially as an adult child, but maybe as a spouse, like, listen to things friends are saying. So maybe like that, like, oh, I don't really want your mom to drive me anymore, or things like there are these things, because it's difficult to talk about. So however we can open up that conversation. And then there are some great resources out there that I can share with you guys to post, but there's the Colorado's Guide for Aging Drivers, which has a lot of just really good information for families. That's available on our website. And there's a great website called Plan for the Road Ahead that's really about like planning on this transition. And it's in a very positive way, not in a punitive way. So there are some good resources out there for families. And then certainly I'm promoting, finding a certified driver rehab specialist. So somebody who has a medical background and is really able to look at the clinical side of what's going on, strength, vision, range of motion, cognition, and then also be in the car. We spend an hour in the car with our clients. So getting that full picture to help your family navigate what comes next.
And then when you do the assessment, do you feel the discussion, is it easier after an assessment about, hey, this is not, driving for you just probably isn't in the cards type thing? I mean, I know I'm simplifying it, but do you find that to be an easier discussion, or does it still get pretty intense? Even when your team's involved or you're involved?
Yeah, I would say it's about as varied as different personality types are varied.
Fair enough.
But I've had somebody say, so you're telling me I need a chauffeur? And I said, yes. And he said, great. So that's the ideal.
Right.
But some people do come back and say, did I make you nervous? And when I say, yeah, you did, they're like, it sinks in a different way than their child just saying, I hate the way you drive or whatever. So I think sometimes if someone's in where they're able to be rational and insightful, that does help when you have data. But especially if there's memory loss, there may be just flat out denial or just very agreeable in the moment. And then the next day, what driving about? So there's tricky parts to it for sure.
Yeah. So it definitely varies, right? Terri and I were talking before we got on the air live about just situations in my family with my dad. And when he had to take his driving test, he absolutely blamed the instructor. It was all her fault, all her fault. She distracted him. She made it hard on him. He never would drive like that normally. And, at least the family, what can you do? You love them and you laugh at what's happening because otherwise you just want to cry. So it's it just has to vary. And it's so wonderful to have people like you, Terri, who are doing the assessment. And I forgot that it's this 3-hour-long assessment where you really are. I remember my mom being her vision was tested, her dexterity.
Oh, wow.
And I don't remember all of the things, but it's very intensive. And then you get in the car and I can imagine if it happened to me that I would say after something like that, oh, I recognize now something I couldn't see before. Yeah. So, that's the hope. But I think reframing this, we've come up with a great reframe. The statistics are there to prove that it's going to happen to us. So it's worth reframing. And
maybe by then we'll have driverless cars. And you won't need to worry about it. I cannot
wait. I'm not even kidding.
I
will be Jane Jetson boogieing around in my little,
and I can promise
spaceship.
I can promise we had computers driving cars, we'd have less accident than humans.
I believe that too. It will happen in your lifetime.
We'll see
about mine, but in yours. Terri, thank you so much for joining us today. We always appreciate you. Such important and serious topic to be talking about, because a lot of people are going through this. So would you share with our audience, if they have questions and would like to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
Yes, thank you. And thank you so much for what you guys do. It's just fabulous. So through our website is great, fitnesstodrive.org. Give us a call. You can schedule a free consultation just to ask questions particular to your situation. And yeah, through lots of ways to contact us through our website is the best.
Fantastic. And while Terri is in the state of Colorado, there are people like Terri in other states. So if you're listening from somewhere else, Google it. And is there a place, Terri, that people could go to in most? Okay.
Like nationwide, I recommend it's an Association of Driver Rehab Specialists. So it's aded.net. And there's like a find a provider button. You can go put in your state, and it's like we refer people out to that all the time.
Oh, that's perfect. So if need be, they could even reach out to you.
So say that one more time, that website.
So it's aded.net.
All right, let me see if I got this right. I'm going to try to. Does that look right? ADED. That's awesome. So it's and what does that stand for again?
Well, it doesn't match up, but it's the Association of Driver Rehabilitation Specialists, and you just got to ignore
Okay.
that thing.
All right,
just click the link.
All right. That is
excellent. Well, we'll make sure that gets in our show notes.
Yes, absolutely. And Terri, this is really helpful and powerful. If families have questions or want to ask, please reach out to fitnesstodrive.org. Always, put a comment in our social pages and we can connect you with Terri as well too. But I think what's really important here is again, we're all going to age, right? And we're all going to need some assistance, and we have to understand that it's okay. And I think we've got to quit projecting what we want on someone who is going through this aging, this cognitive journey, and really understanding that what they need today is different than what they needed 10 years ago, right? And I think for a lot of kids and grandkids, it's like, well, grandpa could do this, but it was 10 years ago, right? Or we've got to stop projecting what we want, at that time for them versus what they actually want and need. I should say that, what they need.
Well said.
So
well said.
Awesome, Terri. It's a pleasure to see you. Thank you for coming on for the second time. So it's great to have you back as a repeat.
And I am a personal reference for Terri. She did an amazing job with my mom. So absolutely.
Did she do your dad too as well?
No, we were up. We were in Denver at the time, and so we ended up with somebody else.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Well, Terri, best of luck in Fitness to Drive. So happy to see you honing in on the driving aspect and really going all in, because it's such an important, crucial topic for us today. So thank you so much for joining us. And next week we have another great guest. So looking forward to having you. We have an awesome guest on
flooring to help reduce the negative impacts of actual falls, not preventing falls, but what happens when someone falls.
Ooh, that sounds fascinating. Okay. All right. So join us next week.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.